Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. Here's your host, Morgan Colby and Rick Lemon.
Welcome to the Wednesday edition of the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. It is October 23rd. My name is Morgan Colby. I got Rick Lemon right across from me, as always. Today we discuss Week 7 booms and busts, and we'll give you some trade targets for this week as well. We also want to break down some weekly matchups, so we'll get into that as well. Before we jump right into the booms and busts, be sure to do the following. Follow us on Twitter at the FF Champs, on Instagram at the Fantasy Champions, and like us on Facebook at facebook.com/the Fantasy Champions. Be sure to check out our website at thefantasychampions.com for all the latest materials and content. Subscribe wherever you listen. Be sure to click the bell on YouTube for notifications if you're watching or listening on YouTube. And leave a review on whatever platform you are on. Let's get right into our booms and busts. You ain't even said anything since I started talking, so why don't you introduce yourself?
You know why I haven't said anything?
Why?
I'm studying the game film.
For what?
The Chiefs' chances with Matt Moore.
Oh, boy.
It's not good.
It's not good, he says. So let's go over some booms and some busts for quarterbacks for Week 7. We have Rodgers, who went bonkers. Is Rodgers back? I would say yes.
I mean, what have we been saying all year?
Yeah.
Literally every single week you ask me, is Aaron Rodgers back? Or you ask me, what happened to Aaron Rodgers? Is he no longer a good fantasy quarterback? And every week it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Well, it's because he played this team.
It's because he played that team, yeah.
He's home against the Raiders, good matchup, boom, goes off. He's home against the Eagles, good matchup, boom.
Yeah.
Has a good week.
Right.
He's on the road against whoever, boom, bad week. It's not that hard for Aaron Rodgers.
He was playing Oakland. I think the thing that was most impressive for me was the fact that he was doing this without Devontae Adams, Geronimo Allison.
That was impressive. I didn't think he'd go off.
So Aaron Rodgers going absolutely off. That's a good thing. I would just keep watching the matchups, because there's going to be weeks where he gets 14 points and you're going to be like, oh my God, why? But then he can do this 43-point thing. And it's like, he did it last year too. Yeah. I don't understand the inconsistencies of Aaron Rodgers. He used to be one of the most consistent quarterbacks in fantasy football. But if he's at home and he's got a good matchup, he's a great play.
Correct.
Matt Stafford had 29 fantasy points. He went bonkers. So
carry on. I think they threw it 40 times. Yeah.
Matt Stafford is secretly a really good fantasy quarterback that no one's talking about.
Yeah.
Kirk Cousins had 29.
So what about the NFC North, huh? The top 3 fantasy quarterbacks this week are all in the NFC North.
Yeah, that's crazy. Kirk Cousins had 29 fantasy points. He's been progressively, we talked about in the last episode, progressively getting better on a week-to-week basis. So he is definitely, I think there was a point in the year, like we talked about before the season, how Kirk Cousins could be a good fantasy option at quarterback this year, especially on the low end, a good streaming option.
Right.
And when he started the season, it was just like,
throw him away.
Yeah, throw him away. Let's not even play him. And then the last 3 weeks since they decided to start passing the football, he's been really good. And Kevin Stefanski, the offensive coordinator, has turned the Minnesota Vikings offense into one of the best offenses in the league when they pass the football. Like, you have to get the ball to Thielen and Diggs in order for that offense to click.
Yeah.
And they started doing that, and it's a good thing for Kirk Cousins. He's thrown 4 touchdowns in 2 straight games. He's been absolutely insane. So I would keep him on your radar, especially if you need a streaming option. He plays Washington on Thursday night. We'll talk about that game later, but I like Kirk Cousins.
Okay.
I'm starting to like Kirk Cousins. Brissett, 27. Who did he play? Who did he play again?
The Texans. At home.
Wow.
Pretty good. Brissett's weird, though. He'll go off, and then he'll do nothing. He'll get 12 against
But it's not even games that you can, freaking predict. Well, that was because they executed a specific game plan to beat the Chiefs.
Yeah.
So I mean, Brissett is at this point, if you were the Mahomes owner, I would say pick up Matt Stafford, Kirk Cousins, Jacoby Brissett, off your waiver wire if they're available, because you need that quarterback for the next 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So and all of them don't have bad matchups. But Brissett does give you really good games. It's just a matter of figuring out who the crap he's going to play well against and who's not. He doesn't have massive bust games all the time, but it's not inconsistent with what Andrew Luck did at certain points during last season. So I do like Jacoby Brissett, but Jared Goff
decided to show up this week. How nice of him.
He's like, how nice of him. On the road this time.
It was against the Falcons, who have been so bad this year.
See, that was my thing. It's like, I was like, crap, they're playing Atlanta, but against Atlanta, they have just given up so many fantasy points to so many different guys. That's like...
They've been terrible.
Yeah, they've been terrible. So it's like Jared Goff was a definite start. I know you were burned.
No, he was a good start. I was just petty.
He's like, I'm petty.
I mean, I'm not afraid to admit that. I just was avoiding Jared Goff.
Lamar has another great week. Dak against Philly.
21, solid.
At 21, he had a solid game. Against Philly, you would expect more, but they had a lot of things going for him early in that game, and they got it to an early lead on Sunday Night Football. So Dak Prescott had a really good game. Fitzmagic with the Miami Dolphins. 21 fantasy points.
Hey.
It's
He
back.
had a rushing touchdown, I think.
Oh,
right?
he did?
Yeah.
So garbage.
Yeah. It was like a 15-yard
He had
rush,
He had a trash game saved by a touchdown. All right, now that we know. Yeah, I don't see any future for Ryan Fitzpatrick on your fantasy team, so let's bypass him. Josh Allen had 21 fantasy points. I know we talked about him a little bit on the last show.
Yeah.
He has an extremely easy schedule, rest of season, like we've discussed.
He's going to get, I think, about 20 a week.
Yeah, he'll probably get 20 a week. He's not going to be unless he scores like a rushing touchdown, he's not going to be like this insanely good, like, Lamar Jackson level player. But I think he has a chance to be, relatively decent. But this also could be the stretch of games that Josh Allen breaks out and becomes a really good quarterback in the NFL. So if that does happen, watch for that and make sure he's on your fantasy team when it happens. Andy Dalton, 21 fantasy points. He's been like a roller coaster.
It's trash time points.
Oh, was it trash time?
I think so, yeah.
Wow. Dalton has been somebody that has been a low-end streaming option. If there's nobody else available, he's been
If he had an
streamable.
offensive line, I think he'd be a better option week to week.
Well, I know at the beginning, first 3-4 weeks of the season, we were like, yeah, pick up Andy Dalton and stream him, and now it's like, no. And then I'll just throw Phillip Rivers in there as an extra guy, and Gardner Minshew.
Minshew is back this week.
Minshew
21
mania.
points.
Let's go. But I like, you count 14 different quarterbacks, and Bridgewater had 19.9, so 15 different quarterbacks scored 20 or more fantasy points, or 19.9 or more fantasy points, if you want to say that. So it's like that's a very large number of people, and when you like, Teddy Bridgewater probably wasn't on a team, Trubisky probably wasn't on a team, Tannehill, Minshew, Rivers probably was on a team, but maybe not. Dalton wasn't. Josh Allen, if you had him, you probably didn't start him. Maybe you did, and you were smart. Fitzmagic, you didn't expect, and then you had Stafford, Cousins, and Brissett, who all probably didn't start or are probably on the waiver wire in your league. So it's like, how many of the big guys, like you have Watson. He was the QB 16 this week.
I know. And
So,
he didn't have a good week, but it wasn't an
he had
awful
like
week.
what,
17 points?
But it's like you got. I guess we'll start talking about some busts with Watson. He had 17, and it's not even a bust. It's an okay game.
Yeah.
Russell Wilson had 15, so that's not a good game.
Considering what he's been all year.
Everyone's been talking about how he's a top 3 quarterback in fantasy, and then he goes out and drops 15. A burger and gets 15. So
Carson Wentz only had 7 against the Cowboys.
See, why didn't people when Dak was like a top 3 quarterback? Right now he's top 4.
Is he top 4?
Yeah, but he's got a trash schedule coming up, so there's that. But yeah, I mean, Russell Wilson getting 15 is not bad, but it's not what you expected. But after that, it's like a complete drop-off. Garoppolo had 7. You had Kyler Murray, who you thought was going to have a good game this week, but then Chase Edmonds, like...
they ran the ball, like he...
I know.
It wasn't really his fault.
I was going to say, Chase Edmonds went ham, and...
He only had 104 yards passing, Kyler Murray.
Yeah. No,
but he went 14 of 21.
Against what was he? They were playing the Giants, right?
Yeah.
against the Giants, I expected a lot more from Kyler Murray, but they just went to the ground and they didn't turn back. So it wasn't really Kyler's fault that he had a bad game. It was just game script, I guess.
Yeah.
Which is not normal for them to do what they did. But anyway, I would expect in the future, like, don't give up on Kyler Murray and be like, this guy's a garbage can and all that stuff. It's just, they were able to run the football well, and that blocked Kyler out.
Right.
I don't know if there's any besides Matt Ryan, but he got hurt.
Mahomes got hurt.
Mahomes.
See,
Carson Wentz had 7.8.
That's what I was saying. Not great.
Yeah. I told you to start Carson Wentz, so there's that. But let's go through our RB running backs for Week 7 booms and busts. This is where it gets weird. I was telling you on the last show we were going to talk more about this in detail. The 1 and the 2 running backs in Week 7 of 2019 fantasy football were Chase Edmonds and Latavius Murray. Now, if you told me back in May or August that this was going to be the situation, Chase Edmonds and I almost said Chad Edmonds, Chase Edmonds and Latavius Murray would not be on the top of my list in terms of predictions, and they weren't. So, this just goes to show you need your handcuffs. I talked about this last episode. You need your handcuffs, and you need to get, like, if you have Leonard Fournette, you got to pick up Raekwon Armstead. If you have Ezekiel Elliott, you need to pick up Tony Pollard, and if you have Dalvin Cook, you need to pick up Alexander Madison. It's like, if you have a handcuff out there, if you're through your bye weeks and you don't need players to play, then it's time to start picking up players off the waiver wire for your handcuffs. And this is proof of that.
No, it is.
They went bonkers.
A lot of people thought Kamara was going to play, and last second he didn't, and nobody even, like, there was a lot of people that didn't even realize that. And then all of a sudden they looked and they saw Latavius Murray at 27 fantasy points.
And they were like, wait a minute.
Now imagine if you had both of those guys on your team.
Or 29, I'm sorry. I know.
You wouldn't have lost the beat.
That's so ridiculous. And then people are going to, like, freak out on Latavius Murray and be like, holy crap. He's actually good when you give him the opportunity and a good offense. He was terrible in Minnesota.
Yeah.
Dalvin Cook had 27 fantasy points normal day at the office for him. He scored another 2 touchdowns. Do you think it slows down at all for this guy? Because he keeps scoring touchdowns. He might score like 25 touchdowns.
I'm not sure.
At the pace of play that he is going at, he might score 25 touchdowns.
He's insane.
I'm like, I can't. So far this year, he has scored 8 touchdowns, and we haven't even made it through 8 games yet. So if he has another 2 touchdown game, he's on pace for the Gurley touchdowns that you saw in the past. He might be able to. See, this is my problem, is that you have Christian McCaffrey out there still, and he's like the bona fide number 1 running back because he's ridiculous. But, like, if he wasn't there, like,
I mean, it's him and Cook.
Dalvin Cook would be the one. So I'm like, I don't know when I don't know if he is.
Do you
going
regret
to
trading him in fantasy this week?
I do not.
Okay,
not at all.
I don't either.
I got Hopkins.
I don't.
I got Hopkins and Fournette. So
yeah, that was a good trade.
Ezekiel Elliott had 23, normal day for him. Austin Eckler with 22 fantasy points.
He had 5 carries for 6 yards. So it was 22 fantasy points all in the air. I think he had a receiving. He had like a 40-yard touchdown. Reception, and I don't know how many catches he had, but I think it was like over 7 or 8.
Wow,
I'll pull it up. Yeah, he had 7 catches for 118 yards and a touchdown.
Austin Eckler is like a slot receiver.
Pretty much.
That offense has been really bad.
Yeah.
And so is Melvin Gordon, and we'll talk about him later. But Austin Eckler, I mean, it's clear that their offense is better with him in it, but I think they're trying to figure out how to utilize.
It's better when he's involved in the passing game.
Yeah, you're very holding on to. I just
told you he had 5 carries for 6 yards.
No, I know, but against a bad matchup, but he still scored 22 fantasy points. He's not better than Melvin Gordon, and by no means. But right now, their offense does when they're feeding the ball to Eckler. Regardless of what it is, they have looked better. You saw the first 3 games of the season, they were winning. You know what I mean? That was with Austin Eckler playing his best football. So I don't know. Austin Eckler at this point is a boomer bust play. You can't really play him unless he has a good.
I think in PPR you can play him week to week because he's gonna get like 6-7 catches.
That's a lot of catches for a running back, though. unless you're like straight putting him in the slot. Anyway.
Which they are. If you watch Chargers games, he is in the slot half the time.
But anyway, Derrick Henry had 17 fantasy points this week. He's probably scored a touchdown, and that's probably why he had 17.
Actually, I don't know if he did. Oh, yeah, he did. He had 90 yards. Well, he did have 90 yards rushing, 90 yards and touchdown.
Yeah. So that's what you expect from him on a week-to-week basis. Aaron Jones caught a touchdown that boosted his numbers up to 16 fantasy points. Fournette is a monster, and he's a monster being held in a box of not scoring.
Yeah,
I called him the other day, poor man's Dalvin Cook, because he literally does the same stuff as Dalvin Cook without the touchdowns.
He had 29 carries this week.
29 carries, 31 touches, and he had 100. Insane. I think he had around 120 to 130 all-purpose yards.
But only 15 fantasy points.
But he only had 15 fantasy points. It's because he didn't score a touchdown. It was like the second this guy starts scoring touchdowns, he's going to be ridiculous.
You've been saying that, but we're in week 8. Like,
I know. Well, last year, I'll note somebody from last year. Mr. Christian McCaffrey, through 7 games, only had one touchdown all season. I think it was 1 or 2 touchdowns.
I think that's when I traded for him.
Yeah, and then he went bonkers. So I think Leonard Fournette, 15 fantasy points, he's all right. Saquon Barkley made his return, had 15 fantasy points, and then Josh Jacobs got back with 15 as well. So some interesting plays. It was a low scoring week.
Oh yeah, all around.
The RB12 was Todd Gurley with 11.
Wow.
Jamal Williams was right next to him with 11 as well. So right after that, I mean, we could just start after 14. We could start listing busts at this point. Chris Carson had 8 points.
Not what you want.
Not what you want from Mr. Carson.
I mean, according to all the other running backs, Melvin Gordon was an RB2 this week and fumbled at the goal line.
That's ridiculous. Melvin Gordon is a player that I did want to touch on. He has been extremely concerning because I thought there was going to be I missed 4 games of the season learning curve. And it's been bad. Yeah, he is not. The first game back, 2.6 yards a carry. Second game back, 2.3 yards a carry. Third game back, they finally gave him 16 carries, 2 yards a carry. So
he's gonna keep getting carries though. Right?
I would.
And
I would
you said
so.
You said it would take him 4 weeks. So according to you, he's gonna have another bad week this week.
Yeah, against Chicago. Yeah, of course.
Well, Chicago ranks 28th against the run.
Yeah.
So I do think he's gonna have another like 10-point week, but
I just don't. What
he should have had. He should have had 16 points.
Yeah, I mean, week. So for fantasy football, that's cute. But that's
what we're talking about here.
A touchdown.
David Johnson every week stinks in running back, but he gets 16 fantasy points, and everybody's
here's the thing, though. Here's the thing, though, is that you can't bypass in fantasy football. This is the way that you got to look at it: is that if a guy is touchdown dependent, he's not going to be startable.
Derrick Henry is not startable.
I look at Derrick Henry getting 6, 7, 80 yards a game, right? And he gets no catches. What's that? 6, 7, 8 fantasy points a game. So he's going to have these nasty weeks. The thing with Derrick Henry is that when they get in the red zone, they're going to push the ball with
Derrick Henry.
With Derrick Henry. And you could say the same thing about Melvin Gordon, but that offense has been bad. Like, it has not been good. But, so it's like, how often are they going to get him in the red zone to punch it in? He had his opportunity twice, and he fumbled at the goal line. He's just
not like that. In Tennessee, like that, we knew going in that was a tough matchup. You said to sit both those guys. Like, it's
I
not
said to
surprising.
sit Melvin Gordon. I'm saying there is concerns here, and that you should not sit there and expect Melvin Gordon to be what he was in the past, because he's just not going to be. He might start scoring touchdowns, and like you said, that would be getting him to 15, 16 fantasy points, but I just think that the rest of season, he's after the bye week, he might be good, but he's got a couple of difficult matchups: Jacksonville, Denver, and Minnesota. For me, it's like I don't know what the rest of season value of Melvin Gordon is. I would rank him right now 10, 11, or 12.
Okay.
Just because I don't see him being the top 6 back that he was, because he missed all.
I don't think he's top 6 either, but. Like I'd still have him like 10.
Like if you have Melvin Gordon, I'd try to sell him now as a number 1.
I don't think you can sell him right now, because most people around the league won't want him for what he's probably worth. Which is, I mean, you just said 10, 11, 12.
Yeah.
I think most teams around the leagues are just
Does it not concern you either that they're going to utilize Austin Eckler?
That part doesn't actually concern me at all.
So this is my thing, is that he completely blows on the ground right now. He's averaging 2 yards a carry on the season on 36 attempts. So, to me, if he's not going to be utilized in the passing game...
I mean, he's had 13 targets in the 3 games. It's not like he's not utilized.
I understand that. I'm just saying that the 6 targets in game 1, 4 targets in game 2, and 3 targets in the third game.
If he gets 3 targets...
Do you not see a trend of decreasing there? I know you own Melvin Gordon, but we got to look at this from
I do, but they were also like...
I own Melvin Gordon in 2 leagues. I'm just giving people...
You're acting like this is a me thing, where it's... I just have
I'm not...
Melvin
I'm
Gordon,
literally
so
not the only person that...
No, I know you're not. I'm just saying, like, calm down and, like...
I don't believe in him.
Okay.
Not this year. I think like if they re-sign him and they bring him back and he has a full off season, then that's great. And he could be good rest of season after the Chicago game, which is fine. But I just don't... What you saw from Melvin Gordon, which is an average of 18 points a game last year...
You just said 10 or 11 or 12. You had him ranked.
Yeah, for right now. If he has another freaking awful game, that might move down to like 14 or 15. But right now, just what Melvin Gordon is and the talent that he is, he's 10, 11, or 12. I'm saying that if he doesn't average 18 points a game, a guy ranked around 12 is going to get you 14. So he's not the RB1 that you thought he was going to be when you drafted him. And that's all I'm saying. If he continues to put up 2 yards a
well, yeah, if he does that, then
that's concerning.
He's gone.
But anyway, he had a bust game.
And still finished in the top 16. That's how bad.
That's how bad this week was. Carry on got hurt.
Joe Mixon continues to blow.
Marlon Mack was 7.
Mark Ingram.
Tevin Coleman, who had a really good matchup this week, and I don't know if we said to start him, but he had 7. He had 7 points.
Matt Breida didn't have a good week either. And I also was high on Jimmy Garoppolo, who also had a bad week. Here's the problem. Did you watch any of... Yeah. They scored 9 points, actually. I think they won 9-0. So not a big difference. But
9-0.
But if you watch the game or even just saw a clip, you know why.
Wow.
Did you see anything from that game? No.
It was raining a lot.
Not only was it raining, it was impossible to play offense, essentially.
Wow.
It was that bad. Like, you saw the players sliding on the field.
Somebody literally asked that on our Twitter. They were like, should we be concerned about the weather? And I looked it up and I'm like, oh, it doesn't look that bad to me. No. Usually you don't worry. You don't worry about
if it's that weather. Bad, though,
if you don't worry, when you don't worry, you don't usually worry. You don't have to worry about, like, for fantasy football. In real life, yes. Football is affected by weather, but in fantasy football, generally speaking, it's not super affected. And
unless it's weather like that.
All right, whatever.
It is. If it's super snowy, a quarterback's not going to throw 400 yards.
What do you do with Joe Mixon moving forward?
I don't like Joe Mixon at this point.
Is he benched
I'm
at this
kind
point?
Yeah.
He's becoming I'm going to put this guy in my starting lineup when I don't have any running backs. And there are people who are still going to start him as a number 1 running back.
Yeah, no, I'm done with Joe Mixon.
Ingram had 5.8 fantasy points, so
that was disappointing.
He came down to earth. He's come down to earth a lot since his huge weeks. Singletary, who a lot of people were like, wow, this guy's going to be amazing.
He had 5 carries or something like that.
We had 7 carries for like 6 yards.
No, he had I can pull it up. He didn't have a catch, so that didn't help. He had 7 carries for 26 yards, so that's why.
Oh, 26 yards? I'm sorry. I don't know why I said 6.
It's like 4 yards a carry.
Yeah.
He just didn't really get the action. I think Frank Gore had like 20. Freaking Frank Gore, man. The running back killer.
Yeah. And then, I don't think there was many other busts. David Montgomery, who we already talked about.
Carry-on got hurt. Phillip Lindsay, 3 points.
Yeah. Let's move on to our wide receivers. Marvin Jones caught 4 touchdown passes. He joins elite company.
That's ridiculous.
Being the third wide receiver all time to catch 4 touchdowns in 2 games. He's probably on some people's waiver wires too.
Is he on ours in our league?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, he is. Not for long.
Now you tell me who the third wide receiver for the Indianapolis Colts is, and I'll tell you Zach Pascal. You ask an average fantasy football player who that is, and they'll be like, I don't know. Zach Pascal had 25 fantasy points in this game, and T.Y. Hilton had 16. So T.Y. was in the game, and Pascal came in and played. He was the 4th wide receiver in that offense. Is this a breakout game for Zach Pascal?
It could be. Very well could be.
Everyone was talking about Deion Kane all offseason. So Zach Pascal is your guy now. He had 25. Hopkins, 21. He's back.
Solid week.
12 targets, 9 receptions.
He's getting, he even in the weeks where he's gotten like 8 fantasy points.
I've always felt
he gets like 10.
This is why he was a buy last week for us, because DeAndre Hopkins is a player that he's so talented and he's so good that you can't. Like, people are like, oh my God, what do I do? Do I even start him? Like they started thinking that he was just not good. Like, it was like Juju. But that offense is so good that at some point DeAndre Hopkins is going to start performing in it. And that's what happened this week. He finally caught a touchdown pass. He had 100-something yards receiving. So he is DeAndre Hopkins. He's the guy that you think. That's why we told you to buy him. And so he's awesome.
Wow.
I love you, DeAndre Hopkins.
I wonder...
Especially because you're on my fantasy.
Yeah, there we go.
Marquez Valdes-Scantling had 20 points. So finally, somebody in this friggin' receiver core
took advantage of the fact that Rodgers went off and Devontae Adams did not play.
So, like, everyone's been talking about Geronimo Allison or Marquez Valdes-Scantling. And I think I said Valdes-Scantling a while back. And I'm gonna take a truther lap.
I think you also then said Geronimo Allison though after, like, you flip flopped on that, so I can't.
Who knows?
You can take the lap.
I can have. I made sure I was safe and had 2 audio clips. Of this, so I could pull it back and be like, I was right on this.
I think I drafted. Yeah, wow. Of you saying one thing and then another, and whatever happens.
Forget about the other episodes that I told you the other thing. Just listen to that one.
I think I drafted MVS. So.
What about Allen Robinson?
Dude's a good receiver. I didn't think he'd have a good week. It seemed like he had a tough matchup, but he's very, very solid. Imagine if he had like Patrick Mahomes as his quarterback and not Mitch Trubisky.
He would be insane. It would be ridiculous. I love Allen Robinson. Like, you see the stuff that he can do. Like, even like when I saw practices in preseason, I'm like, when he's playing bad corners and you can actually see the catch radius of this guy, it's insane. He's really good. 19 points is good, but he's been up and down all season, and it's like,
it's not his fault, but he's just going to be that.
But it's like I actually thought, I think he's going to be a wide receiver too this year.
He is, yeah.
And I think he'll probably be good and then overhyped next year.
Unfortunately.
And then people will draft him and they'll be like, oh, I forgot this guy was like this. He's like poor man Stefan Diggs.
Yeah.
There we go. Speaking of Stefan Diggs, he had 17 fantasy points this week. He had, so far, since Cousins has started throwing the ball, he's had 12, 5, 40, and 17. You know what he is now?
What is he?
Where did I have him ranked?
Was it? Where was
11. And he's 11.
Wow.
Frick me. Stefan Diggs is back. I don't know anymore what we're going to do with Stefan Diggs.
Should have another good week,
If they continue throwing the football, Stefan Diggs and Adam Thielen are excellent fantasy options. If they go back to running the football 100% of the time, ground and pound, hashtag hit the rock, like, if they continue to do that, then Diggs is worthless. But right now, with the passing of Kirk Cousins and how they've been utilizing their offense, Stefan Diggs is amazing. Like, he's really good. And this is what you saw from Stefan Diggs last year, but it's just hard to figure out. Like, for me, on my team, I have Stefan Diggs. And right now, I could probably justifiably put him in my flex without excuse.
Right.
And so right now, I'm okay taking, because of the way my team is constructed, I'm okay with taking the bus games for Stefan Diggs. But on some teams where he might be a wide receiver too, it's a little more risky. You know what I mean? It depends on how starting him on a week-to-week now depends on the consistency and the type of play that you get from a guy like, like if you have a DeAndre Hopkins or a Julio Jones or a Devontae Adams or somebody like that next to Diggs, then you should be all right. But if you have like Julian Edelman next to Diggs, the boom games are going to be really good, but you're going to have tough weeks.
Yeah.
So I would say Stefan Diggs is startable on week to week now. I don't know about you.
No, I think he definitely is, especially this week against the Redskins with Daly out.
Michael Thomas had 17 fantasy points. Alex Erickson, who I actually did research on in the preseason, he's the number 4 wide receiver for Cincinnati, or I think the number 5 wide receiver for Cincinnati. He actually has some good metrics. If you go to playerprofiler.com, he's not that bad. It's interesting that he got 17 fantasy points this week. I believe he's a slot receiver.
It's just weird that like 1 week it's Tyler Boyd, then it's Auden Tate, and then it's I don't like anyone from Cincinnati.
No. You can't predict it, so I would say stay away from Alex Eckerson if you can. Corey Davis, we told you to pick up. We talked about him yesterday at 17 points this past week. And then Johnny Brown.
He's been balling all year, low-key.
Yeah, he's actually been relatively decent. And with an easy schedule coming up, somebody might have a steal.
And Josh Allen loves to throw the ball deep.
Oh, yeah. And John Brown, what does he like to do?
Go deep.
All right, let's talk about some busts. I don't know. Keenan Allen, again, 8 points. Not a great performance. Cooper Kupp has been bad the last 3 weeks. It's funny because I'm like Auden Tate. We told people, like, pick up Auden Tate, play him against Jacksonville. Yeah. That might be okay. Got 8 points, and you feel good about that. But then you get 8 points from, like, Keenan Allen and Cooper Kupp, and you're like, this is a bust game.
Brandon Cooks has been meh all year.
Yep. Who do we say, though? Who do we say was going to be a bust this year?
Brandon Cooks.
Oh. Yeah, we don't take victory laps, though.
Except you do with MVS.
Oh, all the time.
Tyler Boyd, 6 points. He's on my team. And you were saying the Melvin Gordon thing, how like, he's on your team. I'm done with Tyler Boyd.
Oh, you are?
Yes.
Why?
I hate that offense.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
It's not really his fault. It's just like the team blows, and I don't think Andy Dalton has any time in the pocket.
Right.
And when he does, he just tries to throw to the open man, obviously. Which is why you see random receivers going off every week with Cincinnati. Right. It's just not working.
Another guy that I noticed busts, and he's had some really good weeks, but I think Marvin Jones completely stole all of the thunder of Kenny Golladay this week. 2.6 fantasy points. Wow. So he had a very, very bad game. I would not be concerned, but this is what Kenny Golladay is. He's not super consistent, but I think he's close to being like a very good wide receiver one. But he just doesn't get the targets on a week-to-week basis that he should.
Yeah, and Calvin Ridley, too, 5 fantasy points. He's just so inconsistent.
It's not very far off from what he was last year. If he was the number one wide receiver, he'd be a monster. But unless you have any other receivers, let's move on to tight ends.
No, we can go to tight ends.
All right, the Walrus. I'm ready to talk about Darren Waller and his 28 fantasy points. He scored 2 freaking touchdowns in the game. Yeah. Had 100+ yards, 7 receptions. He's legit. Him and Austin Hoop, there it is absolutely insane. I feel like we only name our tight ends.
I know, but those are the number 1 and 2 tight ends of fantasy.
Yeah. Hooper had 12 points and Waller had 28. So those number 1 and 2 fantasy tight ends right now. There is a real reality that Hooper and Darren Waller were on the waiver wire in your league.
Oh, they probably were.
And you have Zach Ertz.
And you drafted him.
You drafted him real high.
You
know what I did? I told you guys.
Josh Jacobs.
I told you guys not to draft a tight end early. I said, don't do it. Wait till after the 10th round. Or you can do it in the 10th.
Yeah, but you also suggested Trey Burton, so there's that.
Yeah, well, can't hit them all, I guess. Ebron had one-handed catch for a touchdown.
It was pretty good.
Yeah,
bro.
Pretty good. That's all of his fantasy points right there. So, Jimmy Graham had 14. Rudolph 14. We talked about Rudolph.
Gerald Everett.
Rudolph on the last show. Everett is back.
Yeah, Everett's been solid. What do you think about Hunter Henry? He's on my team, so I'm asking.
I like Hunter Henry, but I don't like the Chargers offense right now.
Okay.
So
in the 3 games that Hunter Henry, he's only played 3 games.
Yeah.
But he had 8 points, 26 and 12.
What are the targets?
He had 5 in week 1, which wasn't great, but the 2 weeks that he's been back since the injury, he had 9 and 8.
See, that's good. That's good target share.
More than Keenan Allen.
If you look at when you look at that offense right now, it just depends on, like, I would say I would hope that it continues for Hunter Henry, but I would say that you have, Keenan Allen, you have Mike Williams, and then you have, I would say Austin Eckler is even ahead of Hunter Henry in terms of pass catching.
Yeah, I'd probably say
as the 4th option in the offense, I'm not really super excited about Hunter Henry.
He might be ahead of Mike Williams at this point.
He might be ahead of Mike Williams. I actually wouldn't disagree with that. But if he continues to get 8 to 9 targets a game, then he's a perfect fantasy option. Like, that's all you really need at the tight end position.
Right.
If the guy gets 8 points, don't worry about it. It's fine. And then Josh Hill, New Orleans, Rhett Ellison, Foster Moreau. Oh, look! Listen to these names. It's freaking ridiculous. Foster Moreau of Oakland caught 1 touchdown, and that was all of his points. So he was the number 11 tight end in all of fantasy football at 9.4 fantasy points. So at this point,
can we talk about the busts?
Yeah, Travis Kelce,
not bad actually considering Mahomes got hurt.
Yeah, he was targeted a lot by Mahomes.
I mean, the way Kelce's played this year, and people took him in the second round, most leagues.
Yeah,
he was a second round pick.
This is what he looked like. The reason why he was in the second round.
Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. The reason why he was in the second round was specifically because Tyreek Hill was going to miss time. So, and then when he didn't miss time, he came in and played. He ended up missing time, and we saw what it looked like without Tyreek Hill.
They still didn't really use Kelce as much as people thought. They just more used other wide receivers.
I don't know why. I think people love Kelce, so this is going to be hard for people to hear.
Oh.
Without Mahomes, what is Kelce?
He's just another tight end, honestly.
Like, people really like him, but in terms of from an NFL league perspective, taking fantasy out of it, he's a trash blocker, and all he does is run routes and catch. And when he is the only target in the offense, they focus their efforts on stopping him.
He's not bad,
and he just hasn't been good. He's not bad. No,
I
think he's not as special as people think he is. People panic on Travis.
If we're talking,
this guy's incredible. I'm like, it's Mahomes.
I know you joke around with me because I do love this, but if we're just talking non-fantasy, football wise, George Kittle's a much better tight end than Travis Kelce.
Yeah,
because he's the best. He's an elite run blocker.
No, I don't disagree with that. Kelce had 7 fantasy points. Not bad, but I would say that's a bust for the week. Kittle had 5.
Speaking of Kittle, that was the worst fantasy football game of all time. The Redskins 49ers was just all guys were slipping on the field, dropping passes. It was Garoppolo threw 100 yards.
No, that's gross. Mark Andrews is another guy. 5 fantasy points. He has come down to earth. I did tell you guys that he's the 3rd tight end in terms of snap percentage. He's only on the field for passing downs. He has not been utilized as much as people thought he was, and the more Lamar Jackson runs the football, the less Mark Andrews is utilized. You must be feeling good that you actually traded Mark Andrews away and in that deal got Austin Hooper.
Yeah, it's funny. I didn't even want Hooper in the deal. I traded Andrews to get Montgomery in the beginning of the season, and I was like, I guess I could use a tight end. I'll just take whoever he has. And he just happened to have Austin Hooper.
That's ridiculous. Ertz had 4 points. So
there goes the bounce back week.
And Dawson Knox had 3 points, so I told you be careful if you're gonna utilize them. But I think that's all there is for tight ends. Let's move into some trade targets, and then we'll do once again, because we always overdo our show. We'll just talk about the Redskins and the Vikings.
Okay.
My number 1 buy of the week for me is Travis Kelce.
After all that trash we just talked.
After all that trash I just talked on Travis Kelce, I really think he is when Patrick Mahomes is on the field. He is, and Tyreek Hill too, because we haven't even seen Hill and all of them play in a full game together.
That's kind of scary.
When Mahomes comes back, Travis Kelce, and even with Matt Moore, we'll see what happens. I'm actually curious to see. It is gross. Yeah. But if the Chiefs' offense is still extremely efficient,
you think it will be?
I don't know that. I don't know
because against the Broncos, it wasn't good.
No, it wasn't.
They had one. I think Hill had a touchdown, but other than that, they blew.
But I think Travis Kelce, as good as a passing option he is, I think right now people are starting to. He's had a couple of bad games, and
Mahomes is injured.
And Mahomes is injured. This is a buy opportunity for Travis Kelce. If you can get Travis Kelce right now at a bargain basement price, he is going to get back to Travis Kelce play. If you need a tight end, it's worth it.
Especially for playoff time when it comes to fantasy.
Now, what would you offer? What would be?
I still wouldn't sell the house for.
Yeah, I would say if you have a low end RB2 option in your flex, possibly sell him for Travis Kelce.
Yeah. Especially if you have other options on your bench that could be a flex option as well. Then I would definitely do that.
Yeah, I definitely think
if the team that has Kelce's weak at receiver, running back, and you have an extra receiver and extra running back that you can throw in there, I would definitely throw that guy in the deal, your tight end, and then another bench player and see if he'll take it.
Marlon Mack is another buy for us. Marlon Mack has been a up and down running back.
He really has.
And it's probably been real annoying for the Marlon Mack owner. I'm going to say if you don't have Marlon Mack, I would go out and try to buy Marlon Mack at this point. I think he's been talented this year. He's getting the opportunity. That's the big thing for me, is that regardless of whether or not he's been super consistent, at some point I think he's going to start showing consistency because he's getting the opportunity. So you got a guy like, I think it was 2 weeks ago, he had 20 carries.
He had 2 weeks ago, he had 29.
Yeah, so it's just if you have a guy like that with that opportunity that you can buy low.
His schedule's not bad either. It's not great, but it's not bad.
Yeah,
it's like pretty average. So if he has an average schedule and gets 20 carries a game, he should be productive.
Right. Give us the final guy.
It's my guy on my team, Kerryon Johnson. Now, barring injury, because we still don't know what that injury is. If he's okay, Kerryon's a good buy. The owner will probably just see he got 2 points for him and was like, what the heck happened? He only had 2 points. I'm getting rid of him. Kerryon, he had 5 carries. He was doing good in the game before he got hurt.
Yeah.
He has yet to, put together a game yet this year where he's gotten, he's exploded. But he's shown, 26 carries for 125 yards against the Chiefs. No touchdown, or else he would have went off. He had 15 against the Chargers. He only had 12 carries.
Yeah.
If he had 20 carries that game, he would have had a 20-plus point week.
Right.
You're kind of waiting for that big week, and he's shown flashes of it.
Yeah.
And then he gets 15 points a week, 14, 15 points.
Yes.
But he just hasn't had that big week yet. Mm-hmm. He's playing the Giants, the Raiders, then the Bears, who have struggled against the run, the Cowboys, who, believe it or not, have struggled against the run as well, and the Redskins, the Bears again. That should be
enough.
5 good matchups in a row, 5-6 matchups in a row. It's a good time to buy him.
Yeah, I agree. Let's move into our breakup. We're gonna break up.
Wow, really? Here now? You're gonna do this now?
Right now. I'm done with you. Let's go over our weekly breakdown of Thursday night football. Redskins at Vikings. This game is absolute freaking garbage.
I'm so excited that I don't have to watch that game.
The over-under is 41.5, and it should be over at halftime. So let's talk about the quarterbacks. I don't know who's starting for the quarterback for the Washington Redskins.
It's probably going to be Case Keenum, but who knows?
Case Keenum. Case Keenum gets Minnesota blows. But for Kirk Cousins, this is a great matchup. I would saddle him up. If he's on your waiver wire, pick him up and start him if you need a streamer.
This should also be a huge Dalvin Cook game, too.
Yeah, it should be a big Dalvin Cook game. I'm curious to see. Now, this is what makes me nervous about starting Kirk Cousins, is that if he does come in and Dalvin Cook ends up
It could be a week 1 game where he throws the ball 12 times.
Yeah, where he throws the ball 12 times because they ran it a lot on the Redskins and wanted to just get out of there. But we'll see what happens. They've been throwing the ball a lot lately in Washington. If they can somehow stay in the game, this might be interesting. But
is Peterson worth the start?
Thursday night football game.
If Chris Thompson is out again?
Adrian Peterson? No.
Yeah. Okay.
I would say not against Minnesota. Any running backs for Washington. He
had 20 carries for 81 yards last week against the 49ers.
The only player on Washington that I would consider starting is probably McLaren, just because of the target share that he does get, and he has a better matchup this week against Minnesota.
McLaren had 2 targets for 1 catch last week.
What are you?
So
ridiculous. Anyway, I that is the only guy that I would consider possibly starting. But as far as Minnesota, I would definitely Diggs, Kyle Rudolph, Kirk Cousins, Thielen if he plays. I would start pretty much everyone on the Vikings without question.
Okay. Thielen's probably not going to play, but
yeah. I would
start probably. Rudolph might be a good option. How has Rudolph done this year, though?
He's been meh, but without Thielen, he gets targeted. So he's like the second option. He's like the new slot receiver. So anyway, is there anyone else you wanted to hit on in this matchup?
Yeah, he did have a good week actually, but before this past week for Rudolph,
he had done nothing.
He had 14 this week against the Lions.
Yeah,
but before that, he had 5, 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 0.
Wow.
In the 0 he played, he had 1 target.
That's crazy.
0 catches. But with Thielen out, he could be a good start. So
yeah. With Thielen out, he was targeted a lot. So I would feel like he's a good start this week. But just keep an eye on the Thielen situation. But that'll do it for this episode of the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. Be sure to listen on tomorrow's episode as we break down more matchups and discuss starts and sits for the week. Don't forget to check out our website at thefantasychampions.com. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Talk to you tomorrow, Fantasy Champion.
Peace out.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Champions podcast. Make sure you subscribe on iTunes and YouTube and follow us on Twitter at @TheFFChamps.